Welcome. We have here today one fabulous guest, Cid Rhomberg. We were just talking about Cid's title. Cid wears a lot of hats. Some of them are uncensored, so we might have to. My daughter doesn't like swearing, so I can't include one of your hats.
That is true. That is very true.
That is true. Okay, so Cid, are you the co-founder of Brickhouse Blue?
Or I am the co-founder. Yes, co-founder,
your LinkedIn
co-owner.
Yeah, exactly. Your LinkedIn says Chief Experience Officer. It says like you can call me the janitor, you can call me the mail sorter. I'm sure all sorts of other things. Cid also has a side hustle outside of co-working. We're mostly going to talk about co-working, but you are a coach for high performance teams, and you work with sports teams and all sorts of cool teams that are dysfunctional and try to fix them. And you're on the GWA board.
I am.
Yes. Yeah, and
it's an honor.
Gio, can we talk about the announcement? Gio said it'll be public
by the time this comes out. Well, it'll be out that
I'm sitting here
co-president with her, even though I was trying to get her in.
Co-presidents, yes, of the GWA for 2023, but 2023 and 2024.
Yeah.
Yep, it's irrevocable. It is now public and irrevocable. So I could not be more thrilled about that news. So congrats and thank you in advance for
you were actually in the room when we were both forced into
it. I don't think either of you saw that coming, but here we are.
If we're being honest, I reached out to Cid that week and I was like, hey, what would you think about being president? And she responded back, hell no. You and I were driving around that day before that meeting and you said, what about you? And I said, hell no. And then we both walked out. It was like, okay. But it just works because we have different personalities. We have different skill sets. We both are kind of to the point, right? So I think that's part of what, we need to figure out and work through is, coming out of COVID is what do we want to be as an organization? What does GW want to be? How do we want to serve our members? How do we want to grow? What events do we want to really focus on and things like that? And so that's the exciting part about being with a chief experience officer as the co-president is that she understands that stuff. She works, like you said, with a bunch of groups, is helping them strategize and do a lot of that. So we've already had a lot of great conversations, a lot of great thoughts. I just came back, literally landed a couple hours from Columbus, spending an entire day with her and her team, just kind of talking about Brickhouse Blue, but also about GWA. So it's exciting.
Okay, I have to share one little nugget that I think about sometimes. So we were all in Dallas for a meeting sometime in December. And
December.
I can't remember why. Cid was hungry. And
Gio saw my hangry come out yesterday.
A little hangry. Oh, yesterday. So, maybe there was some potential for hangriness at this meeting. Gio abruptly leaves the meeting. Maybe there's a break.
No. We took a brief break.
We took a brief break. So he thinks I have time to solve this problem. And when I think of hospitality, that's the kind of thing I think of. I love that about Gio's personality. And when people talk about hospitality in co-working, people talk about member events and this or that, yes, but not quite. The ultimate hospitality, which maybe we can't always deliver on given business models and such, is Gio comes back from this break with a burger from In-N-Out, burger and fries. Wait, was there a milkshake involved or just a cheeseburger and fries?
Well, and so this is, I've gone out of my way to be very intentional when I listen to people, but also I'm really sneaky. The reason that whole thing started was because you and I picked up lunch because we were starting right at lunch. So.
I also get hangry and I'm like, oh, we are eating or else.
Yeah. And it was funny because Cid was like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. And it was like, I'll tell you right now, I was like, here, you can have half of mine. And Jamie's like, you can have one bite. It was pretty funny. And so in that, Cid got excited. She asked about In-N-Out Burger. And so I took a little bit of time, and as we were just all interacting in this board meeting, I kind of asked Cid, I was like, what would you get if you went to In-N-Out? I was already plotting. And so I knew exactly what she wanted. So it was perfect, but then I screwed up because I got back, and then William was like, "Oh my gosh, can I have a bite of that?" And so it became one of those deals where I was like, "I can't."
The community burger.
William,
was.
you're man
But
enough.
I want to say thank you, Gio, because you saved my day, which probably saved other people's days.
All of our days,
because
right.
that hangriness that we all get. But hospitality, Jamie, is, you kind of led into that, and that really, that's from my background. And, hospitality that Gio shows on a just very natural, genuine basis. I grew up in the service industry. And so when you have that as a background and you think about, what can you do to solve people's problems before they even know that they're problems? Or how do you go out of your way and not make it obvious? But I love that element of professional hospitality that you can offer to people, that they don't even have to stop and think. All of a sudden there's more coffee there, or there's the printouts that they request. I mean, just minor things that we all do.
Or
in
the snacks in the room. How many times? So Cid's been a part of my flight group for a long time, and now Liz is in there because she's building her team. But like, how many times have people asked, like, so you just have snacks in the room all the time? Like, this is like, people, and you're like, yes, that's just how we operate. There are always peanut M&Ms when people need them.
There's always M&Ms, there's always Skittles, there's a refrigerator full of drinks, there's chips. I mean, you name it. And who doesn't want just those simple things? Because when all of a sudden at 10 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're in the middle of a meeting and you're like, I just need a little something. Doesn't have to be icky food. We want to make it. I mean, sometimes we'll surprise people and bring in hummus and vegetables, or, some kind of a different spread for them. And, that's what gets people to come back. And that's what gets people to think that we are something different than the options, the other options that they have. So, yeah.
So Cid, I know of your corporate marketing background. Can you tell us a little bit more about your service industry background?
Yeah. So I started, oh gosh, initially I sadly to say, because I don't think they're around anymore, which again, ages me. But I started at lovely Ponderosa Steakhouse, like way back in the day.
Yes, we had Ponderosa.
Yes, I had
that was a pretty good night out where I grew up.
The brown polyester.
Yes.
I had it going on. And from there, I was a grocery store clerk. I did everything. I worked my way through college. I worked at the Limited when it was the Limited way back in the day. And I worked full-time through college. I worked, more than full-time during the summers just to make ends meet. But when you're in that industry and people are spending their hard-earned money, just that element of hospitality, one, always trying to enhance a sale, increase a sale. But secondly, just to make people feel really good about the purchase that they just made and departed with their hard-earned money. And, I grew up with not a lot. We didn't have pennies to rub together or nickels, et cetera. So the value of the dollar was always important to me, and being respectful to matter who it is. It doesn't matter if, where the person comes from, the walk of life that they are. We're all human beings. So it's that element of connection and service. And I did that until I moved on from the Limited right when I was about to get married. Retail hours are grueling. They're hard. I like to say that you make about 50 cents, an hour at that job. And back in the day, that was, it was a decent wage, but moved from there and started really into more corporate situations. So I went to Safelite Glass Corporation. After that, I went to Stanley Black & Decker. And after that, I went to Cardinal Health. And all of them are large entities, a couple of them a little bit more consumer oriented. And at Stanley Black & Decker, I did all of their B2B, everything that was non-retail. So had 4 industrial brands that it was our responsibility to grow. And I worked very closely. I set up advisory councils with our customers, really got to know what their needs were. And that was really what I translated and even went to a different industry. So even going to Cardinal Health, it was all around customer intelligence, customer analytics, customer segmentation, but all those traditional things of marketing as well. And getting to know the customers, getting to know what they want, and getting that opportunity again to be able to create solutions that solve problems that maybe they don't even know that they have. We always called those the unarticulated needs that people had. And how do you create those innovative experiences? So that's one thing I've translated and brought over both to my consulting group as well as to Brickhouse Blue is let's think ahead and let's make sure that we make this the easiest day that people have. When they walk in, when they come here to work for the day, when they show up for a meeting, you know, whether it's tech, whether it's the just your food, drink, amenities, etc., it should not have to be hard. And we want people to come, get their work done, have an incredibly productive day, and walk out and think that was an awesome day. So that's our goal.
You know, and I'll tell you, I spent yesterday with the team, and you've heard me say this, Jamie, before. I know within 30 seconds of walking into a space whether it's successful or not, just by how the space looks and how I'm greeted, right? And, you know, immediately there's 3 people at the door waiting because they had 3 different meetings. And I think this is a good segue into the meeting part of the conversation that you want to have. But immediately I came in and it was like I was immediately greeted by Liz, Dave, and Susan. So Dave is Cid's partner and Susan was at the front desk. And so they quickly greeted me and showed me around the space. And it was incredible to watch the interaction, right? Because even though we were walking around touring, technically, Cid and Dave would step away to make sure that a member was okay if they looked like they were looking for something, or even just in passing, they knew people's names. Even when we stepped in to look at one of the conference rooms that is a larger conference room in which they had a big group in, he interacted with the people as he was walking through, just very engaging. But I'll even tell you, and then we can jump into that meeting part. But when we spent the better part of 9 to 5. So we were together, 12 hours, something like that, ultimately. But when we walked out of our meeting at 5 to go to dinner, I had to go to the restroom because, of course, I'm drinking way more water than any human should drink. And so I walked out, and who was Cid talking to? She was talking to the janitor, having a full-on face-to-face engaged conversation with the janitor, right? And so when she says that, she truly means it, right? I mean, they truly treat. I mean, I think that's part of it is when it's genuine, right? You don't have to think twice about it, right? And I think that's the big part about it is it just comes naturally for some people, and some people have to work for it. But you know, my interaction yesterday was pretty amazing and unique, and I really enjoyed my time at Brickhouse Blue and with the entire team.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Gio. Thank you for the compliments. And, you know, that's something we strive for. And Jamie, I'm going to come back to probably the GWA conference that was 2018, 2019, where the guy from Ritz-Carlton was there.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Oh my gosh. I soaked that up. Oh my gosh. And all I could think of is I want to go through that program. And it's always been a dream, not because I want to be a Ritz-Carlton. I want to make sure that I understand their thinking, the logic that they have. And, you know, that was one thing that when we opened our space in 2018, I do remember saying to Dave, my co-partner, that let's make sure that we are known for, you know, whatever it is, but service has to be one of it. Because we all remember in our life when you've had that incredible service. I mean, whether it's my husband and I out for dinner, and Gio got to see us last night, you know, my husband met us for dinner, and we specifically wanted to sit in a guy's section at the restaurant because we know him and we know how special it is and how nice, how wonderful he makes you feel. It's a dining experience. And versus I'm just going to sit down, order my food and be out the door. It's engaging. And that's the way we are with all of our members. And now we've got so much repeat business on the meeting side of it that we know so many of the people that are walking through the door that they love it when you get to call them by name. And, you know, it's beautiful. Like saw some people just this week for the first time since the beginning of the year. And they're like, how was your new year? How was your holidays? And you feel that you're providing something to people beyond just space. Again, it comes back to what that experience is for them.
And
yeah, and so it's funny. I mean, I love the quote that says people don't always remember what you said to them, but they remember how you made them feel. But when they do remember what you said to them, it's even that much more valuable and important, right? Because she's talking about Matt, who was the waiter, and I remember the guy's name, and he served once, right? He walked up and he was very engaging, very dynamic, but he kept saying we'd say thank you, he'd say it was a pleasure. It's my pleasure serving you, right? And I think that's the difference, is when you're truly serving with an open heart, that's what it really is. It really is an honor. It really is something you enjoy. You don't look at it as something that's a burden, right? And so I think that's something that's really missing in a lot of our world today, right? I mean, it's like customer service has become something that's not expected.
So yeah. Cid, I told Gio I wanted to ask. So I've never heard your like, how did I get into co-working story? But also you took an unusual at the time, and now in hindsight, we would say Cid made, a great decision and started with a heavy meeting and events business.
Yes. And it's still, I'm going to say, it blows Gio's mind, when he was in there yesterday, he's like, this is such an anomaly. So how did I get into the co-working business? So, as I mentioned, I was in big organizations. I had large teams of people, and nothing was better than getting your team off site for the day and having a day to ideate, to create, to just even communicate with each other. So when I got out of the corporate world and was just trying to figure out, what do I want to do next? I knew I wanted a different path. I just didn't know what it was. I wanted off the exit ramp of, kind of that big world out there. And I wanted an opportunity to create. And I never would have thought about that, except for throughout my entire career, people kept saying, if you ever go open up your own shop, your own agency, your own something or other, I want to come work for you. You don't believe that you're the person that is leading others. It's wonderful when you stop to think about the people that you've impacted throughout your career. And I stopped one day and thought, what do I want to do? What do I want to do now? And met my partner. We met through, really it's through my son is how we were introduced. He played, whatever, it's a long story, doesn't matter. But he and I scheduled 30 minutes in a coffee shop, and it turned into 3 hours. We thought a lot. We kind of ideated a little bit and thought, okay, let's continue this conversation. But there was one place in the Central Ohio area that in his career, in my career, loved to take our people to. And it was a unique space in that it was a little bit more of like the bohemian style, like the think tank, kind of back in the early 2000s. And they had the goofy hats and they came in with the games and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it was a place that you got to go do something different and bring out that genuine kind of creativity within each person. So we thought about, why don't we open one of those in our part of the woods? And so initially it really was intended to be a meeting space. And then I kept thinking, well, most companies meet on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What do we do on Mondays and Fridays when there's nobody in the space? And that's when I thought, well, this co-working trend is really starting to take hold. Let's think about that, and began to create the business model. So co-working for us was an afterthought, but it is such an essential foundation for how we are able to thrive, just with the people who are there, the folks that kind of come and go through our co-working, through the private offices, the meetings that they hold, the affiliations and the associations that they have. And we have at our first location, we have 5 meeting rooms. and Gio got to see it yesterday. I mean, they were packed. We had 50 people in one room. We had 40 people in another room, and we had a group of, I think, like a 14, 15 in rooms. And we have rooms that have garage doors, so they can be bigger rooms or smaller rooms. And bigger meaning about 1,500 square feet, smaller, kind of break it in half. And you know, it was a great thing to show him, you know, kind of that side of our business. It's not common, you know, I think within a lot of co-working spaces to have that
No,
element.
I mean,
where that-
post-COVID, now we're
Right.
telling people you need to think about committing to event space.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about the Cid in 2016 or 17 when you were thinking about this model, and I
Yeah.
might have been like, Cid, I'm not sure about that. Like, you know, how scalable is it? How much demand is there really? You know, all those
Yeah.
questions. But it's like that's what you wanted to deliver. And so you wanted
Well,
to
initially, Jamie, when we thought about it, you know, I do a lot of leadership development today. I do a lot of executive coaching. I get groups of people together. You know, so I initially thought this is a great space. I can do my
I'll use it.
craft
Mhm.
over here in my space, and it allows me to kind of own this whole domain of both getting them physically here, but then mentally being able to work with them as well. And, you know, we've pivoted a little bit. We're pivoting back because the rest of that little consulting, that side hustle that I have over there has become a little bit more and kind of a little bit more consuming. But where do we continue to grow and create opportunities for Brickhouse Blue to expand? So we're in 2023 revisiting that whole component. And, you know, Dave is my business partner. He also runs a recruiting firm on the side. So he also thought, well, this will be a great place for him to do meet and greets and coffee chats and things like that for people who are in the job market. You know, so think about 2017, 2018, before there were a lot of people in the job market, but still, you know, let's get executives in the job market and do some networking. You know, that was kind of our initial vision that shifted quickly just to realize that we're just in a really sweet spot when we look at the organizations, the companies that are within a 10-mile radius that don't want to go to a hotel, that don't want to go to some, you know, kind of closed in kind of facility. They want that up. All of our meeting rooms have tons of windows, floor to ceiling. And like I said, the amenities and the service, I think is really what sets us apart. We're just kind of like a small little microcosm of kind of that big hospitality world, but hopefully we're doing our best to set ourselves apart.
Well, I mean, you said without a doubt, you're setting yourself apart. I think the bigger question that we had yesterday during our whiteboard session is, what does that look like as you grow, right? How many of these can you open in your Columbus network, right? And ultimately, you know, how many times can you reproduce that? Also, do you have a hub and spoke model that plays off of that? I mean, I think that's such a major part of, it's funny, you and I discussed that yesterday, is that's what you do, right? You help companies and individuals strategize. And so that's ultimately what we were trying to do yesterday, was just kind of think through what potentially this could be. And I think, honestly, that's what I feel / know. Jamie knows it too, that so many of these groups don't do that, right? They see opportunities, especially entrepreneurship based ones, is they see opportunities and they prance at them rather than stepping back and going, is this part of the brand I'm trying to grow? Does this serve my members? And ultimately, I hate to say it, we're all in it to make money, right? No one's doing this out of charity, right? Is it fun to build community and serve people? Yes. But ultimately, I say the two people that fail in this industry are the people that ultimately build community and forget that you got to make money at it. And we've seen a lot of those go out in the last 10 years, certainly in the last 3. And then you've got the other side that is focused on making money, but forgets you need to build community, i.e. Regis and others, who ultimately create no stickiness, right? And so the minute people can save $50 a month, they leave. Right. And so I think that's the really cool part about your background and kind of what you're trying to figure out very strategically is how do we grow and what does that look like?
Yeah. And Gio, you bring that up, kind of that whole hub and spoke model. So, we opened a second one 100 yards down the street that is nothing but offices. Really doesn't have the meeting space, but we can all walk 100 yards down the street to get to the meeting space. So it gives us a different clientele in that space that it does in the first one. So each one of them have a little bit of a different
Which
vibe.
again, crystal ball, Cid.
Yeah. Yeah. Crystal ball.
Woo!
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness for that space in 2020, and your mail business, which Gio, I don't know if that came up, but Cid's also killing it on her virtual office and mail business. Cid is a really smart businesswoman and operator.
We have, but it's been a very organic growth on that. I can't say anybody who is listening to this podcast, I will just say, dip your toe in the water and get yourself into that virtual mail business. The beautiful thing for us, it not only more than pays, we have one person that comes in every day, 11 to 2, 11 to 3, and she does nothing but process the mail. That is her job. And if it's a light mail day, she does a few other things around the space. If it's a heavy mail day, she'll come back the next day and kind of pick it all up again. But first of all, it's working seamlessly, just beautifully when you've got that dedicated person. But the organic growth, we started off with a few mail clients. We've signed up with different services, Anytime Mail, iPostal, DaVinci, Opus, all of those. And it's a very nice revenue stream for us that pays for, I'm going to say, a lot of the extras that you've got to have around your space. It really helps us
the peanut M&Ms and the
peanut M&Ms and the Skittles definitely get paid for through the virtual mail program. Yes.
For the
And
record,
we also have blue gumballs. We've got blue gumballs too. So there you go.
For the record, Jamie, I did not eat any M&Ms or Skittles.
I know I could stay away from the Skittles, but the M&Ms might suck me in. Anyway, I didn't mean to sidetrack us, but I just love that kind of insight. Whenever people talk about mail, I'm like, let me tell you about Cid in Dublin, Ohio.
Yeah, and so I think that's what blows my mind when I stop and think about it. And it's funny because there's certain cities that don't ever hit your radar, right? Columbus is one of them, right? I've spent time there. I know some of the big brands that are growing out of there, but I can tell you I've been there probably 3 times in the last 4 or 5 years, and never does it strike me as a big city. But then I'm looking at the population here, and so they're number 14 in the US, right? So that's pretty substantial. And some of these, it's funny, like they've got Fort Worth separate from Dallas. To me, Dallas Fort Worth is one, right? And so when you really stop and think about it, it's probably like a top 10 population-based market when you really look at MSAs, which honestly is pretty surprising that it creeps in there. Like I wouldn't have guessed that it was larger than Nashville, Denver, Seattle, San Francisco, Indianapolis. I mean, so it's just crazy. Sometimes we don't stop and really think through some of these things, and some of these markets fly under the radar.
Gio's had an epiphany over the last couple of days. It sounds like Cid.
We did a lot of research yesterday. We were pulling up statistics on different communities, et cetera. And Gio, you are correct. We are a little bit of that sleepy town. Ohio is not a destination place where people say they want to come on vacation unless you've got family or some other reason that you want to come here. So, the bad news is we don't have the greatest weather. We don't have the greatest topography, but we've got really good people. And it's also kind of in one of those hubs or special places, I'm going to say, throughout the US that, Amazon is a very heavy employer. We have nationwide insurance. We have Bed Bath and Beyond. We've got Wendy's headquarters is right behind us. Cardinal Health, my old employer, is headquartered here. So there's a lot of really beautiful, kind of healthy organizations across all industries. It's a pretty big distribution hub as well. So anyway,
we were running through that. I mean, Limited was based out of there. There's some huge companies as we sit there, look at this. I mean, JP Morgan has 20,000 employees in Columbus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nationwide is 12. Honda has 11. Limited had 7,600. Cardinal's
Bed
5,000.
Bath and Beyond is going straight for chapter 7, by the way. But okay, but back to Cid.
Fitch. All right, continue. Sorry. I get nerdy sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, we got nerdy yesterday. We were pulling up lots of numbers yesterday, which was it was such a healthy discussion, and just refreshing to kind of get those facts out there as well.
Well, Cid, I love that you're a coach, and you had Gio in to help you sort of like think bigger, and we all need somebody to help us. Like,
it was remedial coaching.
Remedial coaching.
No, it wasn't.
So one of the other things on my list was just, speaking of growth and your expansion, it might have been right after COVID, you kind of grew your team. You were like, we're going hard on the events business, and you hired Liz to run Coworking. So you sort of did a big growth. Can you just talk about kind of that transition and what it's meant for your business, and what it's been like to grow the team?
Oh my gosh. I'm just going to say, we are so blessed with the team that we have. We have amazing individuals that think smart, that have the same mindset as far as where our goals are. Jamie, you've met Liz, and I don't even think Gio had an opportunity to meet Mike yesterday. He's another one of our full-time people. They are just such amazing individuals that we are so fortunate. They're consistently looking for ways to grow the business. They're not waiting for us to say, go do this. It comes down to the way that you lead today is not the command and control style of leadership. You can't tell people what to do and how to do it. And when you're hiring, in this business, it can be a grind. We know that the hours are not as flexible, and we don't get to play that I get to work remote. It's really hard to set up and support your members and your guests when nobody's on site. And so we're there, we're in person, some longer days, and they're completely committed to growing the business, to creating lasting relationships, again, with both our co-working members, with our guests that come in for meetings. Liz comes from a real estate background. So she had some real estate, so she totally gets it, knows how to kind of sell and close a sale. And then Mike comes from a corporate events background. So they're both perfectly suited for their swim lanes and where they're kind of focused on and growing their revenue channels. And they're both hungry, they're both competitive, but in a way that isn't undermining the other person. And, as I say, kind of the role of leadership today and leaders is, how do you create an element of trust with the people around you, and then get out of their way and give them the tools that they need, give them the opportunities. I mean, we win, we lose. There's no doubt about it. But when we lose, it's not because of what they did or didn't do. Potentially, it's how can we make it better? Which, again, allows us to stop and support each other. And I mean, they've been unbelievable with me continuing to grow my consulting business. When the days that I'm on site, they're grateful. Maybe they hope that I'm gone 5 days a week. I'm not really sure. But, the days that I'm there, I just see the chemistry between the team, and nothing warms my heart and my soul. And just to know that this is where they want to be and where they choose to be. And that says a lot in today's world, because there's lots of choices.
And Cid, you're a big EOS fan. Do you feel like that contributes to kind of the growth of the team and everybody being focused on the same kind of big goals and rocks for the year? Yeah.
So, we probably, especially as we've gotten so much busier, we've fallen away from, I think, just the rigor of EOS. But we launched our company based upon the EOS platform. Again, we all have different backgrounds. I come from a very structured corporate background, and some people are a little bit more of that ideating kind of, I don't want that structure. So EOS was a great language that we were able to land on. So we do our L10 meetings on Mondays. We always have our big rocks that we're working on through the quarter, through the month, through the week. And, so we've maintained a lot of it, maybe not to the specific processes, but it's allowed us, like yesterday was such a great day to say, we need to get out of the business to work on the business and take a look at where is that vision for 2023. We all got through COVID, and I love to say there are winners and losers during COVID and after COVID. In our industry, we were not winners. And, during the COVID first part of it, even 18 months into it, we were all still struggling. And because organizations are shrinking their real estate footprint, because they want that opportunity to continue to engage, I find that our co-working business has never been healthier. Our meeting business is just, I think, still we're at maximum utilization of our rooms. We're probably at 90, I want to say 93% of utilization of our meeting rooms. And, it's wonderful when you see that valley that we were all in and now coming out of it and seeing where maybe a new plateau is even beyond what we had expected beforehand. And I hope that all of the co-working industry is experiencing that. I can speak for ourselves, but I hope it is, because it is such a beautiful group of people that are so giving and supportive of each other in this industry, because we're all continuing to learn. And, this isn't something that's been around for decades and decades, like a distribution or a manufacturing. This is a whole new green landscape. And I hope for many that they dig in and find where those opportunities are in their communities.
Wow, that was a motivational speech.
Totally.
I'm ready to commit my entire to the flex industry. So, question, Jamie, this question's for you. What did you see in Cid? And I think I know the answer because I know Cid, but what did you see in Cid when you asked her to be on the board? Because that was an interesting conversation from what I've heard. So Cid's rolling her eyes.
So I mean, I remember meeting Cid. I think maybe we had a connection because your son lived in Chicago. I can't remember. We connected at one of the conferences, which is actually quite unusual because I don't usually have time to talk to anybody. We were in
the Starbucks line, and you were right behind me in the Starbucks line.
Ooh.
And
in DC, was it in DC? Yes, because the Starbucks was so, oh my God, Gio, if I had known you at the time, you would have gone and gotten the Starbucks for me, because
you were in a very long Starbucks line that was, no offense, they were probably overwhelmed with the amount of people that wanted morning coffee.
Oh my God. It was the only place. Yes.
Yeah. We had an opportunity to kind of like, hey, I remember turning around and go, Jamie, my name is Cid. And I introduced myself. We started chit-chatting. I had a son that, in Chicago going to college, Jamie from Chicago. That was our first connection. And then it just continued to do this. And I, truth be told, fell in love with Jamie. And that I think that she is an amazing female entrepreneur, business person. And, I still felt that I was so new to this element of entrepreneurship. And I'm just like, I'm going to glob on to everything that woman says and does. And I'm going to be right behind her and joined everything co-working. I did everything to know that she's a person who is an expert, who is a networker, who is a results-oriented person. And I wanted to hitch my wagon. That's really what it was.
Here I am, that backfired. I'm trying to make Jamie give you feedback and make you all sentimental, and you flipped that on me, and Jamie's over there, ready to drop a tear or two.
Totally. Okay, so I'll flip it for you and say, I think the feeling was 100% mutual. I was like, this woman, Cid, is really impressive. And a mom of 5, and she's an incredible businesswoman. And somebody was like, yeah, you should join our group, and you joined our flight group. And we have some incredible women in that group.
Yeah.
Great men, but some incredible women. And I just got to know your background, and you have an incredible, I always think the corporate background lends a lot to the entrepreneurial journey, right?
Mhm.
So, to your point, creating, but you had this amazing marketing background that I knew, and perspective. And I don't even know if I knew about your coaching business would add a ton to the GWA board. So yes, I think we had mutual respect from our moment of meeting in the Starbucks line that was long, and also far from like where the conference was. So yeah, I mean,
you had to definitely make a trek to get to you had to want Starbucks. I'm just going to say you had to want it to go there. And
totally.
But I will say it was a meeting that, will be one of those that you'll remember forever, this incredible person, and one that has, I'm not going to say paid dividends, because that's not why you make those connections, but the opportunity to bring people like that into your life it brings multiplication to that beautiful opportunity of human connection and growth and all those beautiful things. So anyway,
and that's what I love about GWA and Juicy and these things is, right, it's a form of meeting like-minded people and making these types of connections, because had y'all not made that connection, Cid,
100%,
I wouldn't have known you,
yeah.
right? Because we met through the board and we've become, close and had that respect because of that. And same thing, Jamie, I wouldn't have met you if it weren't for that same connection at these events. I mean, we've talked about it before. I don't know when the last time we talked about it was, but Cid, if it makes you feel any better, this ugly guy right here with this big old beard had to work his way into Jamie's life. It wasn't like, I don't drink coffee, so therefore it wasn't at a Starbucks. It was like, how do I get to hang out with Mara and Jamie? And it took some time, but that's what I love about it is once you make these connections, they become friendships, right? And that's ultimately, what I love about this, as Kurt says it, this thing that we have, is we truly have that family that we've created, right? I didn't fly out to Columbus because I want to do anything other than to help you and Dave figure out kind of the next steps and everything else. But kind of going back to y'all, I mean, I think where y'all made such a unique connection is because y'all are very much the same, right? Y'all are overachievers.
Did we get Cid's Enneagram?
I mean, Cid, what's your Enneagram? She's thinking. Yeah,
she's 3. Yeah, she's totally a 3. So I think that's where the
well, let me finish. Well, what I love about it is y'all are both overachievers that hate losing, right? And so you'll do anything to win. Like you'll prepare and you'll prepare and you'll prepare. Or like right now, Cid did not want to receive feedback. I don't know if you noticed that. So she gave it to you instead of you giving her.
She flipped it. And I was like, oh my gosh, stop. Let me talk about how fabulous you are.
Right. Exactly. Y'all are great givers, not real good receivers. And I'm one of those too, right? So I get it. But I think that's so awesome how y'all both look at each other in such a respectful way that ultimately that dynamic grew quickly. Right. And so, I mean, I just love that.
Well, I will just say it was an honor when Jamie asked if I would be interested in supporting the board, and, just to even think the limited time that I've been in the industry, that there's something that I do that could be of value to others within the industry, or, to the board itself, to the association. And, Gio, I will say, for you, obviously being these co-presidents for the next couple of years, I think it's a great match. The strengths that you have, the knowledge that you have in the industry. I still feel like such a neophyte, and that little, kind of that newbie that's coming along and just wanting to grow and to grow smart. I mean, that was a big thing. And Gio said it, and I've said it to him many times. I don't want to grow just to grow. I want to grow smart. And if that means we end up with, we're opening our 3rd location in about a month. or two. And we're looking at, there's, I don't know, 5, 6 more that are on the imminent horizon, but is that the right move? And, we all know so many people that, I'm going to say, get a little bit overexcited, have that emotional attachment, but let's back up and make sure that we're looking at this from a logical perspective. This is a business, and it's a business that needs to make money. It needs to be profitable, because I don't think any of us are in this for, as we like to say, a passion project, to say, I just want to do it because I have no desire to work the amount of hours that we work, et cetera, without there being some kind of an incredible payoff. And whether it's generational growth that we can pass on, or it's profitability from today, this to me is a business, and it's a business that I want to do because it can thrive and also be a great, hopefully, example for others who want to get into the business, or for other business women who want to venture out and do something that is outside of their comfort zone as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, not to take away from Dave and what you get to do with him, but the space is really run by Susan, Dave's wife, Liz, and
Don't tell people
you.
that.
He's a big part of it, right? But ultimately, I mean, that's really how the operation it runs, right? I think you said it best. I think he's chief ideation officer or something like that.
He is. So we wanted to be like the CEO, but I didn't want to be a chief executive officer. That was never my thing. But I was at Cardinal Health, we started our whole customer experience initiative when I was there. And that goes back to the part about the hospitality and ensuring that for you to have a great experience for others, you have to know what they expect, and you have to know what they want to have. That was what we did at Cardinal Health. We created advisory councils. We did loyalty. We had an NPS score, a loyalty score, et cetera. And it wasn't just you collected the data and did something with it. And you consistently made those improvements and created new service lines, to make sure that we're meeting, again, my word is that unarticulated need. I had a tremendous experience years ago to go through a whole innovation kind of boot camp, and how your mind works when you're trying to figure out getting ahead of, whether it's the competition, whether it's getting into the minds of your customers, to recognize what is it that they need that is going to solve that need before they even know that they have it, but also to create that experience that if they're spending their money on it, that we're the place that they want to spend their money, and that we're the place that allows them to be productive on a day when they're using company resources to come visit us. So, yeah.
And I think that's a really cool part, is your passion for the business, right? I mean, I met you at 9, and you said you were getting there at 7:30 to prepare because y'all had those 3 big groups going in, right? You said, I wasn't supposed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. When you're gone, you get anxiety about not being there, and you feel like you need to be giving more, right? And I think that's what a 3 does, right?
Totally.
Is you never feel like you've done enough, even though you're putting in a full work week and then some with your strategy and coaching business, and then you're doing the same thing and kind of overlapping and serving while you're at this space. And so I think that's just so unique to find, because I think the people in this business right now that are struggling are passive operators that thought it was as simple as opening a space and it would lease up, right? And so, I think that's the beauty of walking in the space yesterday and seeing Dave, Susan, Liz, and then looking over and you're there too, right? And so, and that's just in one of your spaces. We walk, a couple hundred yards, and you had a second space with another, I guess, hospitality member that's there serving that pod, if you will. And so I just think it's super unique.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know we are at the end of our time, and I want to say thank you, you guys, for the great opportunity to be with you today. And I hope that this this supports many other people from thinking about, where they want to go, where the industry is going. And thank you. This was such an honor for me.
Well,
Thank you. We know
yeah.
you're super busy, and we're going to have to make Cid a repeat guest so that we could do some GWA updates. And
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
now that I've gotten through my initial anxiety over this whole thing, I'll come back.
That's hilarious.
It's pretty painless,
took us a bit,
right?
It took us a bit to get her on. But Jamie,
Totally.
I really want to thank you for seeing something more in Cid when you met her in that Starbucks line, because again, I mean, it led to her being on the board, and then ultimately to her co-presidency role, which will help drive and mold the future GWA in the industry and different things. And Cid, thank you so much for trusting me and letting me in enough to do the co-presidency with me and allowing me to come into your home and help kind of open some eyes and hopefully.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and so I'm excited to do more of that on a bigger level as it comes to GWA. So thank you so much.
Love you both. Thank you.
Love you too.
Bye.